the board, Mark Carper and Beth Grieve, are serving as staff. The board has before it the application of MDL 153 Mason Solar. The clerk will now read into the record the notice of this hearing, all pertinent facts, and will identify all correspondence received in this matter, which has been provided to the members of the board.
The following notice was posted in the Kent County News on June 13th, 2024. On Monday, June 17th, 2024, at 5 p.m., the Kent County Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing in the County Commissioners' Hearing Room, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, to review the following application. MDL 153 Mason Solar requesting a special exception to construct a 5-acre utility-scale solar array system within the agricultural zoning district. The property is located at 9425 Fairley Road, Chestertown, Maryland. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or observe and/or comment by phone. If you have any questions, please call the department at 410-778-7423. If you need communication assistance, please contact the Maryland Relay Service at www.mdrelay.org or 711 for voice. The property was properly posted on April 19th, 2024, and letters were sent to adjacent property owners on May 14th, 2024. No correspondence has been received.
The hearing will follow this procedure. The applicant will present their case, after which the board and anyone present may cross-examine them in regard to their testimony. If the applicant should have any witnesses to speak on their behalf, they will each testify, and the board and anyone present may cross-examine each witness in regard to their testimony. Anyone else present who wishes to testify on behalf of the applicant can do so and then be cross-examined. Protestants may then testify, after which each may be cross-examined in regard to their testimony by the board and anyone present. The board, at its discretion, may call staff or another person deemed appropriate to testify, after which staff or the witness can be cross-examined in regard to their testimony by the board and anyone present. After everyone has testified, then the applicant and protestants may each be allowed to present closing arguments. Will the applicant please come forward? And if you will raise your right hand. Do you declare that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Okay, please be seated. State your name and positions.
My name is Ted Hastings. I'm with Becker Morgan Group. My name is Ted Hastings. I'm with Becker Morgan Group. We're at 312 West Main Street, Salisbury, Maryland.
Okay.
Tony Cooper Smith. I'm with McAllister, Detar, Showalter, and Walker, 100 Northwest Street, Easton, Maryland.
My name is John Shields, and I'm with Pivot Energy. We have an office at 6865 Deer Path Road in Elk Ridge, Maryland.
Okay, and if you'll describe what your application is about.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are here seeking a special exception, of course, for the utility scale solar facility at 9425 Fairley Road in Chestertown. It's a 1 megawatt facility, and it complies with all the requirements that are in the county code applicable to the utility scale projects. This includes the 5 acres within which the panels are to be constructed and the 200-foot setbacks from all residential properties. There's also a buffer that's provided around the entire outside of the facility, along with a proposed 3-foot berm to increase and enhance the screening capabilities. This project was before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission, which should be in your packet, the Planning Commission provided a letter to the Board of Appeals. I believe it's dated May 3rd, 2024, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of the special exception to the board, subject to 2 conditions. And one of those conditions pertains to the glare impacts or potential glare impacts, and providing evidence that that impact will be mitigated. And then the second criteria was demonstrating non-interference with the view from sites of significant public interests, in particular Mount Pleasant Church, and that the proposed development integrates into the existing landscaping. So after we were in front of the Planning Commission and they provided their recommendations subject to these conditions, we then, working with Ted and his team and with a glare analysis consultant, endeavored to address those two elements that the Planning Commission identified. And we have submitted a glare analysis. There was an initial glare analysis that was submitted and then a revised glare analysis that was submitted. The initial one used as an assumption a 6-foot high, I think a 6-foot high berm, or not 6-foot high berm, excuse me, 6-foot high screening. And with that 6-foot high screening, there was a limited amount of glare that was identified along Fairley Road. But we then went back to the consultant and had them update that assumption to reflect the actual proposed 3-foot berm plus 8-foot screening. And with that updated.
That's on the berm. The screening will be on the berm?
On the berm, that's right. Yeah, built on top of the berm. And so with that, assumption reevaluated, the consultant found that there was no glare impact associated with the project. And I think we submitted that to one of the staff, and I believe that has been provided to you, but I think if I could provide a copy of it.
We have it.
For the record, you have it, okay.
We have both. We have the initial, okay, just let the record reflect that is part of
Okay.
the record of the case.
Okay, thank you. And then regarding the other element, we have the renderings that Becker Morgan team has prepared, and I'll let Ted talk about those more further, but we've basically provided renderings from several different vantage points, but the main focus, as the Planning Commission indicated, was the view shed from the church area. And our renderings show what the view would look like, the view shed would look like upon planting, and then 5 years after that. And so with that berm, which is the 3-foot berm, we believe that the renderings support a minimal impact to the view shed and should integrate well with the existing landscaping. And Ted can speak further to that. So that's where we are tonight. I'll turn it over to Ted and John Shields for further discussion of the project. And then after we go through that, and if you all have any questions at any point, obviously we can address those. And then I'll probably go through a few of the other criteria for the project. So, John, can I turn it over to you for just the view from the project owner?
Sure thing. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. My name is John Shields. I'm with Pivot Energy. Pivot is a independent power provider located, headquartered in Denver. And we do have an office in Elkridge, Maryland, as I mentioned a moment ago. Pivot has over 2,000 projects, 2,000 solar projects in various levels of completion in our 20-plus markets, market being a state that we work in across the country. This particular project is intended to be developed as a community solar garden, and it will be developed under the State of Maryland, the Public Service Commission's regulations as they apply to CSEG, Community Solar Energy Generating Systems. This project is in the DPL territory, Delmarva Power and Light, and as such, as a community solar project in the DPL territory, DPL subscribers will have an opportunity to subscribe to the project and receive it essentially through a series of different steps and iterations. It does come out to a discount on their current electric bill. This project will be incorporated as part of what we call the permanent Maryland CSEG program. Maryland, the Public Service Commission had a 7-year program. That program is twilighting, and then in its place comes a permanent program, which will go into effect officially on January 1, 2025. As part of that program, this particular project, we will be required to fill at least 40% of our subscribership with low to moderate income customers. And again, anyone within the DPL territory don't need to live in the town, in the county, but certainly could, would be eligible for, to become a subscriber to this project. Again, Pivot Solar, we have developed, continuing, I guess should say, to develop a project here locally on Still Pond Road, which we've, I think, come to your board in the past and discussed. That project, we're hoping to get underway, under construction in the near future. And when I say under construction, so Pivot is perhaps a little bit unique in this industry in that we internally, in-house, we develop, we construct, we operate, maintain the projects throughout their life cycle. And additionally, the subscribers that I mentioned, we actually have in-house the capability to bring on subscribers and go and find subscribers for our systems. And that's usually a little bit, sometimes subscribers don't know where to go, so we try to make that easy to bring them on to the project. Happy to answer any questions, but that's a little bit about who Pivot is and what we're hoping to do with this particular project. Thank you.
Okay, again, Ted Hastings with Becker Morgan. We're the engineering firm that helped design the site. A few notables that we want to touch base on is we are meeting the full 200-foot setback from all property lines, which is a pretty hefty setback from the roads as well as the adjacent, I think, multifamily residential that's to the north of us. The project is going to have a 60-foot wide landscape buffer around the entire site. Originally, we came in asking for a waiver for the berm. I normally don't do berms on my site because I like the natural flow patterns, drainage patterns of the site to be maintained. But at the Planning Commission meeting, they asked for the berm, and we have complied with the berm on three sides, mainly not on the north side where there's already a huge tree buffer, wooded buffer, but we have added a 3-foot buffer like the code calls for on the three sides. With that, on top of that buffer, we're going to, of course, going to have the landscaping trees. They're going to be initially planted at 8 feet tall. They're going to get bigger. So the height typically on a landscape tree goes about a foot a year, up to a certain height till it reaches maturity, then it stops growing, obviously. So in 5 years, that 8-foot tree should be around 14 feet tall, 13 to 14 feet tall. So, and also it gets wider and fills in. On the renderings that we provided, you can see we showed the landscaping plan at planning. Because we know at the time of planning, there's going to be some gaps in the trees because the trees are newly planted. We added a mesh to the fencing itself, so pretty much to maintain an opaque look through the fence, so you can't see anything inside the fence.
How tall is the fence?
It's on the fence, yes.
How tall is it?
The fence is 7 feet tall. Yeah, so that mesh will be on the fence. Also, it's going to give enough room at the bottom to allow woodland creatures to go through, the small animals, rabbits, squirrels, or whatever, groundhogs, whatever it happens to be out there. So it is, it helps keep the wildlife managed out in the field. Mainly the fence is for to keep larger animals like deer out, but it's going to allow the other small animals that are already out there, birds, insects. And on top of the insects, we're proposing a pollinator mix underneath there. So it's going to be a pollinator meadow mix that's going to be planted underneath the array. So you're going from a row crop to a meadow. Now, what that does, it helps with runoff from the site. So that meadow is going to help absorb more of that rainfall water so you get less runoff from the site. And not to get too into the weeds on it, pun intended, when you deal with row crops and you have just stalks out there and rows, water hits that, runs off faster. But when you have a meadow mix that's flatter and has pretty much densely packed meadow mix, it absorbs that water faster, so you're not going to get as much runoff. So it's actually improving the site, especially if there's any issues with flooding in that area. It may not cure it, but it'll certainly help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a significant angle to the land? Is it sloped?
There's very, very mild slope to this property. It's less than 5%.
Towards
Towards Fairley Road and towards, everything, the way this site drains, it all drains to that intersection of Fish Hatchery Road and Fairley Road.
Okay.
So what a lot of this is going to do, and I've gotten into the design a little bit, I'm trying not to get the cart before the horse too much, into the design, but now that we're putting the berm in, what we're going to do is probably scoop out the dirt from both sides to create the berm. It's going to create small swales on both sides of the berm to capture the water and hold it a little bit. It's going to be grassed in there as well, so it's going to help with the absorption of the water as well. It will have an emergency runoff so to hit the ditch and be able to drain out, but it's going to slow that water down before it gets to that intersection of Fairley and Fish Hatchery Road.
And the 60-foot plantings are included in the 200-foot area on three sides of the,
The 60-foot buffer's on the outside of the fence, which I have to look. I believe the panels are inside. There's some areas of the fence that are actually across the 200-foot. I think it's the panels themselves, the way the code reads. I have to look.
I'm just assuming that the 60-foot plantings are included in that 200-foot
Yes,
area.
that's correct, yes. And it's nestled up against the fence. There's going to be a small area between the fence and the plantings, allow for maintenance. And then you have your 60-foot. So if you look at the fence, it's probably going to be closer to 65 feet away from the fence where the edge of the plantings are going to go.
And what is the height of the solar array?
15 feet at full tilt. It's not going to be like that all day. It'll be like that first thing in the morning, then at the very end of the day. These are single-axis tracker array panels. So in the morning, it points as the sun's coming up, and that the array actually follows the sun as it goes through the sky.
Okay.
So in the middle of the day, it's going to be flat, so it's not going to be 15 feet tall. The only time it's going to be 15 feet high, and that's the maximum. It may actually be less than that. But the maximum that we go for is 15 feet. We try not to make it any taller than that. It's right in the morning and right in the evening, but during the middle of the day, it's not going to be that tall.
And it's an incidental use on the farm? It's
That's
not
correct.
the primary use of the
It's not the
farming?
primary use.
Farm.
The remaining portion of the farm is still going to be farmed if the landowner so chooses.
Okay.
The size of the property is 335 acres, but that's including, there's one section, it's the same on either side of Fairleigh, that's
Yep,
right. So,
and-
but on both sides,
Yep.
there is agricultural production.
That's correct. And there's a huge wooded area in the back that I understand is used for hunting. So it's going to maintain its use as what's open farmland now is going to maintain as open farmland. Even around, what's left around the array can still be farmed. And as well as the woods can still be used for hunting, as the way I understand it is currently.
And as to our previous review of your still pond thing, Mr. Drummond is not here, but he was concerned about watering, making sure that the plants got adequate water so they survive, and any that don't are replaced. There's a program for doing all that.
There's going to be a bond in place to handle the landscaping. So if anything happens in a certain amount of years, trees die off, and for some reason Pivot, which I can tell you Pivot's going to come out and take care of it. For any reason Pivot didn't have, you'll have the means to go out there and hire somebody to replant it with a good hefty bond in place.
What would be the amount of time you're looking at where the developer would, or you would take care of the replanting?
Well, Pivot Energy is actually is the owner-operator, so John can speak to that, but they're not selling.
Yeah,
their
when I
stuff.
say you, I mean collectively, you know.
Oh,
the
collectively.
developer. Yeah.
Again, Pivot Energy is going to be owner-operator of it, so they hire, I really love working with Pivot. I've done many projects with them, just because we get started at the beginning, and I walk right through them with it all the way through the end of construction with them.
Right.
And after construction, they still own it, they still maintain it, and they're going to hire the local landscapers to help maintain that and bring the water trucks in as necessary to keep it watered.
It's obviously an easier procedure if trees are dying, and then Pivot just goes out there and takes care of it.
Yes.
Rather than we see trees are dying, nothing happens, then we've got to go collect on the bond and then take care of it.
That's correct.
So I think
Yeah.
from a logistical standpoint,
Right.
we would prefer that Pivot
Understood.
takes care of it and replaces it.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the
Yeah,
question.
I was just bringing that up just to let you know, you do have the hammer in this case. You do have the means to force the hand to do it, but of course, it'd be more advantageous for them to upkeep that. It's easier to keep a tree alive than keep replacing them. It's a lot less expensive.
Thank you. And there's no alteration to the infrastructure of the electrical system in the community other than the size of the wire you're going to add?
I would have to speak to John on that, but yeah, for what I'm showing on the plan, what has been provided to me on the plans, it's just literally an interconnection to the existing lines.
And the area that has the solar panel and is enclosed in the fence will not exceed 5 acres?
That's correct. It's actually at 4.98, if I'm not mistaken.
And there's no tree removal?
No
in the
tree
area?
removal.
And we will comply with forest conservation.
And we've already done a forest stand delineation of the site, and we have already determined how much woods that we need to put in conservation, and those woods will go in conservation as part of this. So once it gets in conservation, it's perpetual. It's going to be there forever. Those trees are always going to be there.
And I saw your renderings of the current, what it'll look like immediately after being built and what it'll look like 5 years from now. And
That's correct.
obviously, you will be able to see either the solar panels or the black sheeting on the fencing.
We normally go with a green
For
color. They
a
do
few
come in different
years.
colors. But yeah, so it's always understood that when you first put the planes in there, you only can put in such a certain caliper of tree. So yes, you're going to see it at first. I believe there is in the code that we have to show opaque,
5 years.
5 years opaque, it has to be opaque in 5 years, and that's why we did the 5-year rendering.
And this will be opaque. within
And this
5
will
years,
be
is that correct?
opaque in 5 years,
And
as
there's-
you can see between. That's why I wanted to show you what it's going to be like at plans, so there's not going to be any surprises if this gets built. And they say, hey, this just got built, you put the landscape in, and I can see a little bit of the fence and some of the panels. It's not going to be a surprise, but we know in 5 years, all that's going to grow out and bush out, so you cannot see that
Okay.
for the next 25, 30 years of its existence.
Okay. And there's no noise expected from the
That's
equipment?
correct. Where they're showing it, the transformer switch gears are inside that fenced area, so you know that's going to be over 200 feet away from the roadside. And part of your code says we have to be less than 45 decibels at the property line. And that is maybe, a standard household room noise. But I can tell you those transformers, that little bit of hum from a distance going through that 60-foot vegetated buffer, you'll be lucky to hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a building involved with this?
There's no buildings, just the panels. It's
And
just a system.
And then-
You're going to have, a small transformer, small switch gear in there, and you're going to have the panels all connected in. And that's it. Pioneer Mix, only time you're going to get any movement out there is when they come out to maintain the site. Normally 10 to 12 times a year is all that anybody's out there. Now, they are able to look at this remotely at any given time. They can shut it off remotely, they can look at it remotely, so they have constant eyes on the site and able to monitor the site at all times.
Is there any sort of alarm system
Yes.
involved?
Is there, is that correct? Is there an alarm that lets you know that something goes awry? And
There's not an alarm system necessarily for like activity on the site that would be going on constantly with wildlife. There is, in addition to literally, cameras that focused on the equipment, not on all the panels necessarily, so maybe from a high perspective. But what we have access to is we're tracking the production of the site. And so, and that's even split up into different strings. So we have, if we see a drop in production or something that just looks unusual, we're able to zero in and hone in, and like Ted said, we can turn off a certain part of the system. So there's an alarm from that perspective of whether something's not operating as we would expect to see it.
Ms. Orsi, you have any questions?
Well, I think I do. After 7 years, the panels will become permanent, or what would become permanent?
I think what I was referring to was the Maryland Public Service Commission's CSEGS program. So they had a,
Oh,
are we
okay.
on the same page?
Okay, so after several years, that becomes permanent, right? Is that what you're saying? What is the life of the panels?
Oh, the life of the panels. It's a degrading life, so they're often replaced after 18 to 20 years, somewhere in that range. Again, they don't all of a sudden, typically they don't all of a sudden fail. They have a degrading life, a couple percent every year. So different factors go into when they would be replaced, when they're considered, no longer operating efficiently enough for us. But I would say, that 18 to 20 years.
Okay, then, the other thing, are local subscribers guaranteed?
I'm sorry?
Are local subscribers guaranteed?
They would not be guaranteed. We would encourage it, but they would not be guaranteed, no ma'am.
And how long to build out the project, from when you start to finish? Just curious.
Construction alone,
Yeah, or
9 to 12 months?
9 to 12 months, when it's operational? After 12 months, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. This is a 1 megawatt project. Construction will probably be closer to 6 to 9 months. I apologize.
So is the discount eligible, is every Delmarva Power person, every house that's hooked up to Delmarva Power is eligible for this discount until the,
In Maryland. Yes.
in Maryland, until the number is met?
Right.
You don't limit it to everyone, do you?
Yeah, it's open to everyone.
Well, you have a certain amount of low-income families that have to be on it, yes.
I apologize.
But
Yes.
everyone can apply for it and
Yes.
get it, whether you're low income or not?
The 40% is a minimum, but then that leaves 60% potentially available for any income class.
And that's 40 and 60% of the energy produced by the
Our
system,
system alone, right, our system would be, so it would be 40% of our systems.
of this
energy
particular system?
would be to the LMI customer only, and then the remaining could be to LMI as well, but it could be to other income classes as well.
I'm confused.
Okay. It's about 40% of the electricity produced by this system will have to go to low to moderate income families.
Okay.
The other 60% is open to anybody else that can sign. So if you're a Delmarva Power, user, you can sign up for it.
Okay, so you take in subscribers that meet all the qualifications until 60% of the energy produced by it is taken up.
Once the 60%, the 40%, well, it's 100% is going to get used up, but a minimum of 40% has to be
Okay.
low to moderate income.
Right, you could have more.
Yes.
It just depends on who signs up, but you
That's
can't
right.
have any more than 60% being non-low income.
That's correct, yes.
So if you have to reserve that 40% of capacity. So if you have a whole bunch of people that aren't low income sign up, and you get to about 60%, if somebody comes to you and they're not low income, you have to tell them they can't subscribe.
That's, yeah. And these signatures are open at any time. I mean, you could go today and go online and find a place where you could subscribe for a Delmarva Power and get on the list. If it's open, you can get it, or you can get on a list, and next time it comes available, you can sign on.
So I could be, let's say I'm a Delmarva Power customer, and I live in Wilmington. I could subscribe to this,
I believe it has to be in the same state,
or
doesn't
it
it?
has to be in Maryland.
It has to be the same state.
Okay, so
Maryland service territory.
it has to be in Maryland, but it's not limited to Kent County. It
That's
could be
correct.
any, so it could be in Queen Anne's or Carolina, or whatever other counties Delmarva operates in.
That's correct. In the same way, somebody in Kent County can sign up for the same benefit for something that's been built over in Prince George's County.
But it could be substantially filled up by Kent County subscribers if they elected to.
That's correct.
First come, first serve.
And again,
Right.
Pivot Energy has a little bit more control than most companies do over who subscribes and who doesn't.
But it's essentially, other than the low to moderate income customers, it's first come, first serve.
Yes.
So if a whole bunch of people from neighboring counties, I guess it wouldn't be Prince George's because I think they're on a different
I think
power
Pepco,
company.
yeah, Pepco.
But if you have Queen Anne's and Caroline and
Yeah.
Cecil County people, if they're quicker than Kent County, they could take up the spots.
They could, yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Mr. Mackey?
Just wanted to clarify, what I heard the question on the table being part of that question is that 40% applied to this individual project? Is that correct?
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is.
Mr. Massey?
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, on your application, you filled out that on your adjoining property owners, the owners to the west, you say Fish Hatchery Road borders the property to the west. Okay? Now, if you go across Fish Hatchery Road, you come across property that's owned by the county.
That's correct.
And the county has placed a solar field on their property. Now, Article 7, Section 7.57.25 of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance, Section J, the area of solar panels may not exceed 5 acres. We're good there. The area of the solar panels array shall be measured as the area within solar panels array security fence. Adjacent properties shall not aggregate solar collection panels to achieve an area exceeding 5 acres. So if you're at 5 acres, and whatever's across the street, that's over 5 acres.
So that's a county facility, right?
That's a county, and it's also separated by a roadbed. So it's technically, it's not an adjoining property owner.
Well, during the Still Pond
Yeah,
hearing, it was explained to us, I believe, that that is there so you won't have solar.
well, that was community solar.
Those are right, exactly. The regulations on,
But to someone driving down Fish Hatchery Road, they don't know if it's community solar or solar. All they know is they got solar panels on both sides of the road. I'm not arguing the point,
Yeah.
I'm just,
Right, well buffered, but yes, it is still, the roadbed is still considered a separate entity.
okay, so the roadbed on Fairleigh Road borders the property to the south, so the church and all that don't count. Although I did look back on Still Pond Road, you all listed the property owners across the street.
We list the property owners there across the street. I typically don't, but my reviewers always make me put it on there anyway. Just, it makes your job easier when you start reaching out to, property owners around the site. They're right there on the plan, whether they're across the road or not.
Okay,
the intent of that, I believe, is to say that an individual project coming in should not be coming in with multiple 5-acre areas of
Back.
arrays and trying to add all those up, because, they're on a separate parcel, and
Right.
suddenly we're at 15 acres instead of, and that would apply, the aggregating, as I read it, the aggregating and the restriction is to limit an individual project from trying to get around the 5 acres by subdividing in a certain way and then having these different panels. And John, as
okay.
far as you're aware, there's no connection with this project financially or from an approval standpoint with the project or with the county's array that's across the street, is that correct?
Correct. There's no connection that I'm aware of.
I was going to, Mr. Mackey's here as the planning director and the zoning administrator. Have you weighed in on the issue of the road separating the county's project and this project?
Our understanding is the aggregation applies to contiguous properties, so the road would make them non-contiguous.
So basically what you're saying is the intent of this is so you can't circumvent the zoning code by putting a bunch of 5-acre parcels right next to each other and having, let's say you have 4 5-acre projects to get 20 acres rather than one 20-acre that wouldn't be allowed.
Okay. Let's see, the glare on Fairleigh Road, I think you've addressed that.
Yes.
But if the project's complete and in the future there is glare, that will be handled.
Of course. Same way we did on Still Pond Neck Road, there was one spot, it's actually a second floor of a adjoining property across the street that was getting a certain amount of glare, like half hour a day just in the winter months, and we ended up putting a strip of, like a 75-foot strip of arborvitaes in there, which would be planted at 12 to 14 feet at height at the time of planting, which took care of that glare. Same thing goes here. If there's an issue, obviously, if it's easily fixed by planting like an arborvitae or a tall tree, they'll certainly be taken care of.
Okay, what percentage of the power generated is the landowner planning on using or claiming?
This is community solar. I don't think the landowner's not an accessory use to the property itself, so that'd be zero.
So the landowner's
Unless the landowner subscribes.
not planning on subscribing, and
If you landowner could plan on subscribing, the landowner certainly could subscribe.
Absolutely.
so what percentage could he subscribe and take, because he's got,
How many homes does this thing potentially?
1 megawatt, potentially 200 or so.
So 1/200th of the,
could this be used for a business? Could a business apply
I believe the commercial subscribers are, are eligible,
or eligible?
yes.
So,
It's to answer Ted's question a little more in more detail, it would be 200 residential homes, the equivalent power use of 200 residential homes. So that could certainly be split a million different ways, but it could be a few commercial businesses plus 100 residential homes. That subscriber mix, I don't believe, is specifically stated in the Public Service Commission's permanent program that we'll be getting into. But clearly what's stated is that 40% LMI requirement that we still need to meet regardless of just the spread of commercial versus residential.
okay, because I thought the landowner would be heavily using this. But if he's just taking the money for the site, then that's an accessory use. But anyway, okay, is this project shovel-ready?
well, we still have to go through a lot of review through the planning department. So no, it's not shovel-ready as of today. We still have to get stormwater management approved. We still need to get erosion sediment control approved. We still need to get forest conservation approved. We need to go through Mr. Carper's heavy review. So we still have hoops to jump through. We still have another technical advisory committee to go through, 2 planning commission meetings. So we still have some legwork to do on this project.
Okay, how about with DP and L, Delmarva Power and Light?
I believe they have the interconnection agreement working, they're still working towards that.
It's,
aren't you?
yeah, in the works. They're reviewing our interconnection application. The agreement is not complete yet.
Okay, because with your Still Pond project, you had to come back to us because Delmarva Power came in at, what, $1,700,000 or something.
Right. That was,
So is that going to happen here? Where's the closest substation? What substation is being used? Anybody know?
That I do not know.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that either.
Because you've got to pay phone and all, the whole, phone cable and all.
Right.
And for Still Pond, the phone was like $400,000 to
Right.
place the cable there. So,
and the project was redesigned as a result of that.
yeah, the project
high-
was redesigned
Yeah,
smaller.
to reduce, right, exactly,
Right.
to avoid triggering that kind
Yeah,
of impact.
you told us that it had to be one megawatt to be profitable, and then it didn't
Right.
have to be after that. Okay, so you got, oh yeah, I'm gonna do one for Mr. Drummond also. On your Mason Solar landscape plans, that's page L02, up in the top corner. I've got a copy, but it's so small I can't read it. So I blew it up on my computer. Number 11 says the contractor shall water twice during the first 24 hours and then weekly or more often when needed. So that takes care of watering the plants and the trees.
First 24-hour period after planting weekly or more often as necessary during our first growing season, unless the grower agrees to maintain.
That's all I have.
Yeah, as of right now, that stands. We do always try to put together a maintenance plan together we call it a vegetated maintenance plan, which also not just addresses the trees and the shrubs and the plantings on the berm,
Yeah.
but also helps out, gets us to get in there for the pollinator mix, when it should be cut, what time of year it should be cut. So there will be a plan put together, a vegetative maintenance plan that we can put together for that as well. This, again, a lot of this is concept. It's more of a preliminary. We try to take it to a little bit further stage coming to Kent County because we know you have a lot of questions. So that may change, but
Well, this is what we're making a decision on. This was,
the decision, I understand, is about the use, but it's advantageous for Pivot Energy to keep this watered. We want these plants to survive. It's expensive to replace these plants.
you
So-
folks presented this as part of your,
That's correct.
and then you stood there with your right hand in the air and swore to tell
And
the truth.
and as of today, I agree with that 100%.
I'm assuming that the testimony, the written testimony you provided is the truth.
I agree with everything on that piece of paper. I agree that the watering should be done twice in 24 hours and then weekly as necessary the first year. There's going to be times where you get inundations of rain where you can consider that to be watered. I'll
Well,
tell
it
you,
says
but,
it
yeah.
weekly or more often when needed, so if
Yes.
it rains for 5 days, you're not going to have to go
Right.
out there and water.
And luckily, this is a spot where it actually maintains water, so it's going to, I'm hoping these things thrive without issue because just of the location of where these plantings are going to be on the site. So,
Mr. Mackey has his hand up.
Yes, sir.
Board can always impose stricter conditions in this area if desired.
Speak up. I did.
So the board can always impose stricter conditions than in the application on this matter if you wish.
Right. If you see something that they say they're going to do, but you're concerned whether or not that's enforceable, you can make that a specific condition. And that's spelled out, so then that's clearly enforceable.
Okay. So that might be something we would want to do to be certain.
You're holding them to what they say they're going to do if you make that a specific
Yeah.
condition.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Yeager, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Do you have any other people that you'd like to present information with?
We do not have any other witnesses. I did want to make sure that the board has. That's good. I did want to make sure that the board has the line of sight analysis that Dr. Morgan provided, which consists of these renderings showing Ted will be able to explain it, but it's the view from the street level up towards where the solar panels are and the buffering and the berm. And then related to that is this exhibit, or this rendering, which shows where those line of sight analysis were taken from.
That's correct, yes. So I just
Small,
want to
but
make
we
sure,
have them.
Just want to make sure that it's in the record.
yes. There's a line of sight plan that I did showing 3 locations across Fairley Road. One obviously from church and 2 others from residential homes. And the homes I picked didn't necessarily have more trees in front. A lot of the homes across the street already have trees planted along the Fairley Road, obviously to obscure the view from Fairley Road. But I did it from like the front door of the homes across the street and what they'll look at across Fairley Road, looking across the field 200 feet in, looking through the fence, looking through the trees, and to the first panel at 15 feet. And you see the little X going back and forth there. That's meant to represent the panels at full tilt and showing how the trees will block the view of the panels at full tilt.
Ted, in my notes, can you state your last name again so I have the spelling correct?
It's Hastings, Hastings.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Where is it?
The back
Oh, shoot.
So, and Ted, can you be specific about the properties that were included in the line of sight analysis, and it's not just homes, is that right?
That's correct. One is, I did one from the front steps of the church, just because I know that was an area that everybody was interested in.
And that's the Mount Pleasant Church?
That's
is
the
that
Mount
correct?
Pleasant Church at the intersection of Fish Hatchery Road and Fairley Road.
The church that's referred to in the Planning Commission's condition of approval?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I'm having a hard, it's very, very small print. The adjacent house, I'm having a hard time reading the name.
So they're also referenced on
Oh,
here.
yeah, that would be the Blankenship property. I did from the front step of their house, looking across Fairley Road towards the array, as well as the O'Connor property, which is a little further down the road, across the street, looking through.
And what is the purpose of doing this analysis?
I just want to show when the plants were planted in, the berm's installed and the trees are planted on top of the berm, that the line of sight, if they're literally standing on the doorstep, just staring across the street, that the view would be obscured by the plantings, by the trees that are being planted on top of the berm. So the trees are taller than the actual line of sight would be.
The trees are on top of the berm? or
The trees will be on
fence is
top of the berm. Yes, that's how you get the extra height for additional coverage.
The trees and the fence are on,
The fence is not going to be on top of the berm. The trees are going to be on the berm. We can do both if you like.
I thought it was stated earlier that it was, the fence was going to be on top of the berm.
I don't
That's why
believe-
the glare changed.
It was my understanding we were talking about the landscaping was planted on top of the berm, including the trees. The trees are actually taller than the fence, and that's why we decided to go with the trees on the berm.
I may have misheard.
So these diagrams, graphs here, what is the lower line? I see the line of
That's
sight.
existing grade,
Pardon?
existing grade. That's the ground.
Okay. And what is the arrow shooting up to?
That's just showing the line of sight from, if you're standing at where it shows on the first sheet on the plan, at the black dot, if you're standing there and you're looking out, that's your line of sight.
Okay, what is that, those little arrows there?
Oh, the X? Is there the X at the very end? That's the panels.
No,
Oh, the arrows are the trees.
those are trees?
Those are trees, yeah.
So,
The way I do this, and pretty much the way profiles are done, you give a vertical exaggeration in height. So what you're looking at is what's 1 foot this way is going to be 10 foot this way. It just kind of exaggerates it so you can actually see what's going on. If I did everything 1-to-1 scale, you wouldn't be able to see anything.
so that, if you look at the line of sight area, the upper part of the fence or the panels will be exposed all the way through the line of sight except up at the end here?
Now, what I was trying to show is that when the line of sight is, it's right at the top of the tree when they're first planted, then it shows the second tree after 5 years after it's grown. So I'm not sure what he's asking.
I don't understand. The line of sight doesn't have any obstruction to it.
The trees are the obstruction.
Yeah, but they're not shown on here.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
pointy, it's kind of a pointy
It's a little-
top of the tree.
That's the arrows, I think, what
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about.
that's in one location.
Yeah, I didn't put all the trees in there. I just put one row of trees there on top of the berm in there. I didn't do that.
So you're saying all the trees will be at that height?
No, there's going to be a line of trees on that thing. It's going to be staggered throughout the whole thing to break up the division. You don't,
But the 8-foot tree,
The
there
eight-
will be,
Understand what
there'll
you're
be a
saying.
row of
Yeah.
8-foot trees
I
on
understand
top
what
of
you're
the 3-foot berm.
that's correct. There'll be a row of 8-foot trees. Now, there's going to be some planted lower, some on top, plant other bushes and shrubs around there to break up the visual line. So you don't want it's like a straight line across. It's a actual breaks up the visual effect, so it's not as, doesn't stand out like a sore thumb.
Ted, did you represent the highest tree in there? You didn't do the whole depth of the
No, I didn't do the whole depth
planting,
of
you just
it.
represented the highest tree, right?
I put the the trees that actually what we're showing, which are a evergreen, they're gonna stay green all year long. On top of the, that's the ones that I felt made most sense to show on that location, because that's what's being planted on top of the berm. That was simply a judgment call on my behalf.
Well, this is confusing to me. It looks like you're going to see there's nothing obstructing line of sight except that one little thing. If you wanted to use this to your benefit, you would have
Well-
put something in there for all the trees that were going to be that were going to be.
Yeah, it was just trying to simply show a line of sight showing that it's hitting the tree, and then also after 5 years, the tree's completely obscuring that line of sight before you see the panels. The better view, obviously, would be the renderings.
Yeah.
And the trees will become opaque within 5 years?
Within 5 years. And the trees get taller, they get fatter, they fill in. There's gonna be some, lower level trees, high, the trees are on top of the berm. It's just gonna break up that whole view shed, so you just it doesn't look like one giant wall of trees. You kinda wanna break up that view.
Yep. All
Then
right.
you have flowering trees, evergreen trees, some shrubs, it's gonna be a little bit of everything. Not to make, and then behind it, you're gonna have that whole field of pollinator mix, all this
You
flowers.
are going to have some trees that aren't going to make it, you're going to have to
Of
replant.
course.
So not everything's going to be 13 feet at the same time, there's going to be some different heights.
It's gonna be some variations, yes.
Some grow faster than others.
This is true, yeah.
And
Mother
you-
Nature has its own.
You don't have any other people to testify?
No, but one other thing, the portion of the ag field here between Fairley Road and where the buffering is, that could be, in a given year, that could have corn planted as well, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And
This-
what would the effect of that be?
Well, this past year, when I first came out to visit the property, which I visited all the properties that I come out and represent, that had corn that you could not see. It was like a wall, talking about a wall. It was like a wall of corn there. You could not see anything into the field whatsoever. I guarantee that corn was 10 to 13 feet tall, on top of the hill.
Mr. Chairman. Could the solar array be moved further down in the field?
What direction?
Be to the north? It's here now.
Yeah.
Could you move it down here where there's no houses?
Yeah, we looked at both locations. One is the property owner kind of has to say where he wants to put this. So that's number one. Two, we felt we'll keep everything together, being as like you even brought up, there's a solar array across the street. Let's keep that kind of together, instead of having it in multiple locations. It's actually the lower side of the farm field, which the preferred farmland is where you're talking about right now. So we're putting on I'm not gonna say it's bad farmland, but the worst portion of that property for farming, because it's the lower portion of the property. And again, it's the low end where everything drains, and we felt we could also provide, some type of relief to any runoff from that site, from that location. And it just made sense to put it in that location.
Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify on behalf of the applicant?
We do not have anyone else. We would like to reserve the right to, if there are other witnesses that are going to testify, if we could have an opportunity to, address any points that are raised, we would appreciate that.
Sounds good. All right. Are there those in the audience who wishes to protest the application? Okay. If we have a list of people, and so we will. What's that?
We can start here, Linda and Richard O'Connor, and they can please check to testify.
Okay, I
Just
see.
read their
And then
names.
these people.
Yes.
Okay, so the first group would be Linda and Richard O'Connor.
Good evening.
Good evening. Will you please raise your right hand, sir? Do you declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Please be seated, state your name and address.
I'm Richard James O'Connor. I'm with my wife, Linda, behind me. We live on 2.5 acres along Fairley Road, directly across from this proposed project. This acreage, my north-south is a little altered from them. It's really 45 degrees off. North is really to the northeast, west, so I'll go with their north and south. 11 years ago, Senior Mason bought the property across from us. He also owns the property to our east. Now, the address on the application is actually the property to our east and not the one across from us. On our side of the street, all the last digits are odd. That number is odd. The ones across the street would be even. Both are agricultural properties without any electricity, without any buildings. Plans for those includes a 3-foot-high berm and a chain link fence around it. So I have many questions. How many panels are there?
That would be a question for the applicant.
Off the top of my head, I don't know about.
What was the question?
And also, who makes the
What might
panels?
be helpful is if you have multiple questions, maybe the applicants can follow as we go along, and then after you speak, the applicants at the end
fine.
would have an opportunity to address that, rather than having them answer individually. With the
That's
board's
fine.
permission, that might be a better way
Okay.
to proceed.
There, I have a listing of the questions. How many panels are they, and who makes the panels? Now, they said the original panels were hazardous waste type runoff, so they've gone to silver oxide. Have they been tested for longevity? Have they been tested for length of it, how long before you have to replace them? Are the inverters and transformer housed in a building? Will the building be, they answered that they're going to be all in the open. And my next question was following, would it be air conditioning to keep the inverters and transformers cooler? And will the building be shielded? These are in the plans of major solar farms. What type of engine will be in the emergency generator they have to use for fuel? I mean, is it gas or diesel? And how often is it going to be tested, and for how long? On the berm, well, I didn't get this much information as they just said at our last meeting, but right now they're saying 3 foot and 8 foot, that's 11 feet. The panels are 15 feet, so that's 4 feet. The trees would have to not only grow more than 4 feet in a lot of time, but they have to spread out. I grow trees on my property. Trees go like this, and it takes a while for them to spread out. I would say 6 to 8 years. The chain link fence, is there any consideration for the deer population that we have there? There's, along our stretch, 2.5 acres, there's usually, on a typical year, there's a 2 to 3 deer kill a year by just the migration of the deer going across to eat and graze. The deer will be, won't be able to go across this area. They're going to be blocked by this chain link fence or whatever it is around for 5 acres. This is the only gateway to Fairley. It is also one of the only 2 gateways to Rock Hall and the Chesapeake Bay. Many people from Pennsylvania and New Jersey prefer going down 298 through this gateway because of the scenic views. There's no industry. And the people go there to fish, pleasure boating, camping, and restaurants, and just being on the bay. There's the historic church and cemetery, Mount Pleasant. And the people that come out of the front door and visit the cemetery are going to see these panels for a good 5, 6 years before it's filled in. the three-phase megawatt cabling will have to go under Fish Hatchery Road to make way for the substation. Upgrades have to be made for the lines, the upgrade to the substation because of the amount of watts. Delmarva is a for-profit company. The Masons will not pay for the upgrades. Well, Delmarva is going to have to charge their customers more in this area. So we're going to have a rate increase on our energy bills. From the internet, you can get communities that have solar farms, their real estate values degree up to 2.5%, just because of the few. From the internet, again, there is a shine and shimmer effect from the panels, which can be an annoyance, especially to people with migraines, not just reflection, but when the reflection hits tree leaves and other objects, there's a shimmer in the air, and it triggers migraines in people. Noise, well, they mentioned that the panels are not static, which means the panels are going to be moved in front of the sun with motors. The motors are going to make noise, and the question is whether the panels have two motors or will they be linked together so they move together. And the inverters and transformers make noise, usually a high-pitched. Upgraded substation also is going to make noise. There are reports that solar farms cause communication with problems with Wi-Fi, cell phones, and CBs. This could be electromagnetic interference, but even an electrical line, whether, you can take a 9-volt battery, take a piece of wire, loop it, touch it to the sides of the battery, and you have an electromagnet. There's a magnetic field going through all electrical lines outside of it. The bigger the number of watts, the bigger the field. They mentioned a rebate or tax lowering Delmarva. Nothing specifically to Fairleigh. This is a statewide. Anybody that is a Delmarva company is eligible for this, not just Fairleigh or Kent County. So, this is not for us. The solar farm proposal does nothing for the positive for the people of Fairleigh, Kent County, or the state of Maryland. It is not an agricultural venture, it is an industrial moneymaker. It would be more logical to put it on Senior Mason's dairy farm, which is 80 acres, and run all their equipment from it and sell the excess to the utilities. Negatively, it would be an eyesore. It will have our Delmarva bill increase and our property values devalued. Okay,
Is that it?
thank you.
Thank you, sir. You care to respond to the questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. First of all, there is no chain link fence. We have specifically specified ag fence, which actually is a wider opening fence. Even though we're putting the mesh on it, the mesh will kind of blend it in, but I try not to use the chain link fence because it looks too industrial. So it's going to be a ag fence, larger, wide openings allow the wildlife to travel through it, especially on the lower end, obviously, where it's not going to go all the way to the ground, the mesh isn't. There's going to be a certain portion at the bottom that's going to be hidden behind the berm, that's going to be open to allow the creatures to go through, insects, birds, ground animals, rabbits. The trees, we have a landscape architect on staff that designs these for us. He's very good at what he does. And he specifically puts specific trees that grow at certain different rates. So that he pretty much knows to a certain extent, Mother Nature has its own ways about things, but they do have an estimated height they'll grow per year, and also girth that'll actually grow out as well. So it is tree dependent, depends on what variety they chose, and they chose a variety that actually would grow outwards. The transformers are going to be outside. I mean, most transformers you see driving down the road, they're all sitting on a concrete or some type of pedestal outside. It's no different here. It's as similar as you see everywhere. And to be honest, I have no idea how many panels are going to be on this site. It varies depending on what kind of panels. Depends what the manufacturer are, what size. We do know approximately the size of the panels, width and lengthwise. But the actual number right now, I couldn't even guess. Yeah.
Wouldn't hazard a guess either.
But typically, though, with this kind of project, John, I mean, you would not necessarily be going through procurement at this point, is that right? Because you're in the design phase, and then subject to getting your permits, you then would be going out for procurement, where you would actually have to identify and pin down at that time the exact panels, is that?
That's correct. We don't know the manufacturer at this time.
Yeah. We try not to put the cart before the horse in this case. First of all, we got to get the entitlement process, which is, planning commissions, board of appeals, 2 more planning commissions, technical advisory committees. We try to get them out of the way before we get into the hardcore engineering. Now, we have to do some upfront to appease you, but the hardcore engineer normally comes after that to make sure this project's viable and moving forward. Doesn't make sense to spend all that money up front. Any more?
Are there any generators associated with the project?
What, I'm sorry?
Generators?
There would be no generator. I'm only hesitating because I'm just confirming that in my mind, but yet we do, like I said, we have 2,000-plus projects. There would be no generator associated with this project.
I've not seen a generator in all the projects I've designed, which is in the hundreds at this point.
And so this area, you're coming into, you're on Fairley Road, you're coming in towards where the church is, the Mount Pleasant Church. As we discussed before, there already is another solar facility that has been established in this gateway area, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how big is that project roughly?
I would say it's the equal size as this one. I would guess. I'm not sure exactly what the megawatt is or one of those. I know it's fixed tilt, so it doesn't move like these. It's fixed tilt, points towards the south, and it has a very minimal landscape buffer around it.
Do you know how long it's been there?
I don't off the top. It's been there a number of years, but I can't remember how long. I didn't research that deep into it.
So if you,
County project?
Yeah,
It's county property.
Oh, it's a good 10 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been around a
Wayne
while.
Morris
Approximately 10 years.
was involved in that, and I remember that. That was a Standard Solar, I think.
Yeah.
Probably 2013, I think,
Yep.
or 2012.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's over 10 years.
and then is you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's
Mr. Yeager, you remember whether there was any objection to the project?
I don't recall. I mean, it was on county land. It was a county project. I don't remember, there may have been opposition, but I don't recall, any opposition would have been brought at meetings that I wasn't present for, because I don't represent the Planning Commission, and I wasn't representing the Board of Appeals at that time. So, but I don't have actual knowledge of opposition to it.
Carla now. Carla, with Carla now. Carla.
Carla may have been,
I was present, and in fact, I think I even did do the site plan staff report for that application. But I agree it was more than 10 years ago, but I don't remember much of the other facts.
Yeah, my involvement was involved with working out the agreements between the county and the energy provider.
And those
And
were
that's-
solar projects that were done specifically to supply energy to county
Correct.
properties. So
Correct.
It's not a utility scale project.
Right, right.
Real quick on the EMFs, which is electromagnetic waves, they're practically non-existent. I know you can Google it all day long, but this little guy in my pocket probably puts out more EMF waves than that facility would driving by. And again, it's driving by at 35, 40, 50 miles an hour, that site. I'm hoping people are keeping their eyes on the road, not staring out the middle of the field, trying to see if they can see an array or not. I mean, unless you're really just staring at it, trying to look at it and trying to see if you can see something after 5 years of growth, I mean, to me, that's probably the only way you're probably going to notice it with the amount of vegetation that we're proposing around it.
John, all the panels that you all do ultimately purchase will comply with the requirements in the county code with respect to, any restrictions on the types or characteristics of the panels.
Yes, they will.
These solar panels are non-toxic. There was a time, many, many years ago, where they used to put cadmium on as a coating on the panels. They don't use it, well, I'm not saying they don't use it, there's some areas they still use it, but these companies that you come in front of for these community solars do not use those. Cadmium is just not used for these community solars anymore. And that was the only non-toxic thing, and you might have a solder joint in there somewhere, but it's so minuscule. You're talking about everything's recyclable, and there's a very minimal that's not recyclable about these panels. Yep.
Mr. O'Connor was also concerned about real estate value.
So if there's a solar facility that's already been there for a period of time, then presumably any impacts associated with a solar facility being in that vicinity would already be incorporated and determined into the value of the land. And also, I think, Ted, are you familiar generally with studies on these topics that?
There's been quite a few studies on this that showing there's no impact to property values whatsoever for these solar projects going up.
And he was also concerned about increasing costs to Delmarva Power.
If anything, it'll reduce your cost if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, it's not going to affect it.
There's no additional cost by
No.
Delmarva Power.
Us as other consumers are not paying for somebody else's benefit. No, that's just non-existent.
The project, as in the other case, the costs associated with the interconnection infrastructure, to what extent are they borne by the project when you are interconnecting?
Yeah, the 100%, the project that we're proposing will have to fund any upgrades to the existing infrastructure, electric infrastructure, in order to onboard our project at that given location. So we have, these are distributed generation projects, DG projects. So unlike kind of the older model of electric, production and transmission, that's kind of all one central point and then sent out in different directions, this is a little bit of a different play on that, and that it's multiple smaller projects kind of dotted along the system. And so the system wasn't necessarily designed and constructed in a way that allow these projects to come on without upgrades and just changes in the, I guess they all kind of fall under upgrades. What I'm trying to get at is upgrades to the existing system, so sometimes we have to come back and we literally have to place new wire in place of existing wire. And then there's also, site-specific transformers and things of that nature. And all of that will be, long answer to your question, but all of that will be funded by Pivot and not borne by the other utility subscribers.
Okay. And then, sorry, one more point. Ted, when you go past the church, is there any other utility infrastructure that's already?
Yeah,
exists
there's water and sewer that's in that location, and there's actually a sewage pump station right on the corner, right there at the church. It's not very well, you know,
Is it screened at all?
it's not screened. I mean, I can't even remember if there's a fence around. If there is a fence, you can literally see it. I actually went to that site and looked that whole area, I walked the whole area, and the first thing I noticed was that pump station sitting there. It has a vent pipe sticking out of the ground, you just can't miss it. So there's a lot of other infrastructure in that area.
Thank you.
Oh.
Edward Hastings?
I am Edward Hastings, I'm sorry, she had me stung.
That's him. Elizabeth Watson. That's it? Okay, Elizabeth Watson?
Thank you, but I will not testify.
Okay, so nothing, nobody else? No one else wishes to?
Okay, sure.
Just please identify yourself for the record after you're sworn in. Go ahead and get sworn in, and then behind the microphone, and state your name and address after you're sworn in.
You raise your right hand. Do you declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes,
Please
sir.
be seated. State your name and addresses.
My name's Greg Blankenship. We live in the little white house
Karen
right next to the church, right across the street from the site. We live in where he said he stood on our front porch with the glare.
Okay, go ahead and sit down.
Am I wrong?
I did not see any front porch, no. I said-
Your name,
Said on the
please.
steps. I'm sorry, I'm Karen Blankenship.
Karen, okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sitting here listening to a bunch of people talk about where we live. Okay, we live there. I sit in my living room, watch the wildlife every morning, not just on the weekend, here and there, every day. Okay, he just said we have a pumping station next to the church. Yes, it's noisy. We have a 5-acre field already. Might be owned by the county, but it doesn't matter. We still have 5 acres. They want to put another one in there. We moved here 4 years ago because of, right, it says on our sign, land of wide open spaces. But now they're taking it away. We haven't been here, 5 years now, and then everything we moved here for is leaving. Like the gentleman said, people use this road all the time. We're here I hear one thing nobody talked about. We're here 6 months. Right in front of our house, a little girl got killed because that intersection there is horrible. Now they want to block it off. This is insanity to me, okay? There's no 200 homes in our county that we need electric. So let them go to where they live and put it there. Go to Salisbury, go to Easton. We don't need it. I will pay my bill. I don't need your discount. Okay, and this is just the way we feel. And I'm hoping I speak for all of us here. I mean, it's easy for everybody to sit here and say what they're going to put in our neighborhood. It is our neighborhood, and I think we should have a say.
So you have a concern about
I have been concerned about the whole thing.
you have a concern about the plantings obstructing the view and making the intersection more
Sir?
dangerous?
I sit in my living room every morning. I took a video, but I forgot my phone. There's a deer path that goes through there. When they cut the corn, I see the turkeys come out. The eagles land in there and eat field mice, things like that. I love to see that. That's why I moved here.
But you have a concern about it obstructing
I have a concern about the obstructing.
Let me finish. Do you have a concern about the plantings obstructing the view and making the intersection more dangerous?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
That's something that they can address.
Who, them? They're going to have to redo that road because the curve coming out of Fish Hatchery right there at that intersection, listen, I almost got hit one morning going to my mailbox because the way the road curves, people come across Fish Hatchery, that's an open field most of the year. Yes, there's some corn sometimes, but for most of the year, you can see across that field. People drive their cars accordingly, all right? During the corn height, little girl gets killed, I mean, literally in front of our door. I didn't sleep for 6 months because it is blocked, but now they want to block it permanently. This is not a good area to put these things. They can go somewhere else. They don't, it's just a little corner of the land. And I know why they want to do it, because it's kind of worthless to the farmer. It's on a point. And it just doesn't make any sense to me that everybody's sitting here and I listen and it seems like some of y'all have already made up your mind. I mean, they can fix this, fix that. Well, let me tell you, the sun comes back east to west. Them panels are never going to be flat. They're going to be like this, pointing to my house all the time, and his too. Everybody lives right there. That's what we're going to see, day in and day out. Look, we're all older. 5, 6, 8 years don't really mean much to me, okay? If I'm lucky enough to live that long, maybe they might block my view if I'm good enough to stand up and look out my window. And I'm just being real here, okay? I mean, I'm almost 70 years old. I moved down here to be in the country, to be away from this mess. I moved from that. And here we are getting it again. They want to come here and build these panels because we have the room. That's why we live here. Where do you guys live? You live here too?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Would you want this in your yard? This is my front yard we're talking about. This is I don't own it, but it's my front yard. It's 100 feet away from my wall.
Well, our obligation is to make sure that they provide this service, which is being promoted by the state of Maryland. It's our obligation to make sure that they abide by all of the local and state and federal regulations that are mandated for them. That's our obligation. We can't change the law. We have to make sure that they abide by the law.
Okay, but you approve what they're doing, right? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, the
No.
ultimate says,
Approve or deny.
At this stage of the development of that property, the issues that, we have to make sure that the very basic issues of the project are being met. As the project progresses, it gets more detailed, more complicated for them, more complicated for us for the county and the state, because they have to meet additional regulations. Stormwater management, a multitude of different things that are going to go beyond what we're hearing today with this project. And that part of the benefit of this project is to address or to bring some of your concerns out, so our planning and zoning folks are aware of it, and as the project progresses, if those issues are of concern, then they can be addressed. So it's a good thing you're here. It's a good thing you're making your point with all of this. But some of what you're saying isn't something we have anything we can do about it. It could possibly be done later in the project as the project becomes more finalized.
It's my understanding that land there is zoned agricultural, right?
I believe so.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, are solar panels agricultural? Do they grow? Do they produce anything?
These
other than
projects
money
are,
in this guy's pocket?
these projects are allowed in
Here, let me talk.
agricultural zoning. The law allows that.
that's what the state of Maryland has set forth, that these
A good example is
projects
the
are.
300 acres just outside of Chestertown that's going to all be solar panels.
Okay, so why do we need it in our front yards then? I mean, why can't they find a field that nobody lives around, look, there's a big field.
That's not part of our.
That's not part, that's based on what land is available for sale, where the developer goes. We can't tell them what land to buy and not to buy. And the project, the 300, or the large project over here, the county did oppose that, and the Public Service Commission ruled against the county on that. So these are uses that are encouraged by the state of Maryland. There are other proceedings involved beyond this. Mr. Mackey, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the special exception is granted, there's much more that the developer has to do. They have to present a site plan and go before the Planning Commission and put in more particulars as to the project. This is generally a threshold type of issue. They can't go to the site plan stage of it and other stages of it without first getting approval for a special exception. So I understand what you're saying, but these projects are provided for by the state of Maryland and are encouraged by the state of Maryland, is probably the best way I could put it.
By the state of Maryland?
The state of Maryland has goals for solar energy by a certain period of time as to how much or what percentage of power should be by solar. I don't recall the exact numbers on that. Maybe Mr. Mackey may have some more information, but that's the direction the state of Maryland is going in.
You know, and they say that we're all going to be eligible to apply for a discount on our electric, correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. I've been paying electric for almost 50 years. First it's insulation, then it's this, then it's new windows, and yet guess what? My bill has never gotten cheaper. I've changed all my lights to these LED lights, supposed to be cheaper. I'm getting a higher electric bill now than I ever got. It's twice as much now as it was when I moved down here just 4 years ago. So, I mean, as far as the discount's concerned, that's a joke. Okay? That's the way I feel. I mean, I'm hoping people behind me, which are the ones it's going to affect, feels the same as I do.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Anyone else who wishes to
I'd just like to say something. In 2005, the World Health Organization said that there were no harmful risks to solar panels, but they changed that in '22 and said that living near those electromagnetic fields can cause, it can trigger symptoms, and this is on their website, that it can include headaches, fatigue, skin rashes, and sleep disturbances. And I have end-stage liver disease, and so when I moved here because of the open land. I like to look out and see the animals, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So I have to abide by what the World Health Organization requires or suggests with these things. So if they would put these solar panels up, I would have to sell my home and move. And that is going to be a depreciated value because of the solar panels. But I can't take a chance with my health condition to stay near them. I'm in the little house right next to the church, which is directly where they're going to put them. So just like to say that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you wish to address any of the comments?
That's fine, in the back. Oh, somebody in the back.
I first want to start and apologize if they thought I was standing on their front doorstep. That did not happen. The view I did an aerial photograph of that whole area and put a dot on it, and I brought in contours. It's called LiDAR. That's flown. It's for the whole state, which gave me an idea of what the elevations were at their house. So I did not encroach on their property whatsoever to do this study. So I apologize if I misled on that.
You're saying the study is real, it's not real.
It is very real. LiDAR is very accurate. And you'll be surprised how accurate the aerial photographs are. They're right on point. Again, this project has 200-foot setbacks, and even with the landscaping area, when you're coming down Fish Hatchery Road, the line of sight coming off Fish Hatchery Road looking up Fairley is not going to be obstructed. Not at, especially where the stop sign's at. It's not going to be any change from what's there now. The panels, any glare towards his house is going to be non-existent. If they were fixed tilt, maybe, like the fixed tilt that's across Fish Hatchery Road that point to the south and stay to the south, these panels are flat to the ground, and they turn east to west. They don't point towards his house whatsoever. They follow the sun. They follow the sun just so it can absorb more of the sunshine, obviously. If they're not absorbing the sun, they're reflecting it, they're not really doing their job very well. So they're tracking east to west. They're not pointing south at all. So there's going to be no glare whatsoever from the tilt of the panels. And that's what I have.
And the comment about the traffic safety, this project will generate how much traffic?
10 to 12 trips per year, which is practically non-existent.
And where the screening is located, as you come down Fairley Road, does it obscure the intersection with Fish Hatchery Road?
It's not any close. From the 200-foot setback, including the little area plus the landscaping, you still have well over 100, I'll say 120 between 100 and 150 feet of visibility, which is more than adequate. I've done a lot of state highway design, and you have to do line of sight from they're called triangles, and this is not going to affect it whatsoever.
And then I'm going to ask the board's permission. I have the, pulled up here, the SDAT record for 9259 Fairleigh Road. So this is the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, and this is for 9259 Fairleigh Road. And that's one of the properties that was included in the line of sight analysis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm going to show you this with the board's permission. This is the record, and can you confirm that this is 9259 Fairleigh Road?
It is.
And the property was purchased in, or the last consideration shown for the property when it was last purchased, or when it was purchased for consideration, was,
It looks like 2012, looks like September 7th of 2012.
and the price for that?
It's $50,000.
And then the current assessed value as of January 1st, 2022.
It's $289,000.
So, and is that roughly the period of time when the county facility, the county solar facility was there?
That's correct.
And so did this price increase during that time?
Yeah, all
Did the
applied,
value
yes.
of the property
I have
increase?
a question.
That's correct.
Was the property unimproved at 50,000 and then a house was built? Was it improved, or was there substantial renovation? Because
We can ask Mr. O'Connor.
that appears to be price of land versus price of improved property.
I don't have that information. I guess the upshot is that the record shows an increase in value and assessed value during the relevant period of time, and that was with a solar project present.
It does show that somebody, if they built a house, it shows that
It was a
they,
new house, new construction.
was new.
What was there when it was purchased for 50,000 was pretty much a dilapidated,
Okay.
very small.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. So,
You know, Commissioners, I think this is almost becoming a personal attack at this point.
It's certainly not intended as such. It's the issue is that, you know, we are here to try to present and address all the different criteria that are required under the county code. And one of the criteria there is the property value issue. And that was questioned, has been questioned tonight. So our intent is, it's not personal. I understand it's you know, a difficult situation to discuss all of this, but our job is to try to present information relevant to this topic, and that's the only reason for that.
and again, I've been doing this a while, and there are studies out there saying there is no change in property value because of these solar facilities. And this is a small one compared to most.
Yeah. Any comments on the toxicity of the panels again?
Yeah, they're non-toxic. I mean, again, years ago, they used to have cadmium as a sheet. It used to be put on as a film on the panels. It helped get rid of dust, snow accumulation, stuff of that nature. It's just not used anymore. It's not used on these community solars and not purchased by these community solar companies, just for that reason alone. This comes up a lot. Most every one of these meetings I go to, everybody wants to talk about toxic panels, because you can easily find that Googling. They're just, years ago, that may have been true, but today, no, it's not.
And not the electromagnetic effect?
And there's electromagnetic effect is non-existent. I mean, no more than a transmission line of the power lines could run down right next to your house. Again, you probably have more than that cell phone in your pocket.
Anyone else who wishes to testify?
There's two up there.
If you'll raise your right hand, you declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. State your name and address.
My name is Linda O'Connor, and I live at 9259 Fairleigh Road, almost directly across the street from this proposed, whatever you want to call it, the solar farm, utility solar farm, industrialized utility solar farm. I think my husband Richard covered most of what I have in my notes, but I'd like to refer all of you to the Explore Kent County that's published by the Chamber of Commerce. And it indicates in here the Economic Development and Tourism Development Committees, or whatever they're designated as, that the opportunities here are for the well-being, social well-being, and quality of life for all members of the county. The mission statement is to utilize and maintain the character, heritage, natural resources, and the way of life that exists in this county. And on a side note to that, I don't know whether you folks are aware of it or not, but Kent County is one of the last special landscapes of the entire mid-Atlantic region that takes us out of a lot of the other areas of the Northeast. It's special here. When you come down 298, traveling west, if you pick it up at 213 where Molly's is, there is nothing but farmland, idyllic, peaceful area. All the way down, as you approach Fairleigh, the historic Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church is there, the historic cemetery. And these people all want to change that. Now, regarding the real estate value, everything, and I mean everything that I have looked online, indicates that for a small rural area or a small quaint little town, it drops from 1% to 2.5%. That's with a solar farm. If someone has panels on their roof rather than a solar farm, but the panels on a rooftop are a plus to sell the real estate. So I kind of miss something with the information that I'm getting from some of these people that are talking, because everything that they're saying can be refuted from the other side. There are lots and lots of lawsuits out here all across the United States from the Environmental Health Trust because of the very problems that we're discussing in here this evening. There is a noise problem. Who wants to listen to a humming all day long? And there positively, no matter where you go, to any solar farm that is in existence, you're going to see shimmering. And it does cause migraines, and I have that straight from my ophthalmologist. And again, as the gentleman said back here, one of the reasons for locating into Kent County is because of the peacefulness and the wildlife, and that will definitely be disturbed. There are many, many other locations in this county that are not on the main road gateway, so to speak, that people, tourists, travel to get to our beautiful estuary, the Chesapeake Bay. Why would we want to disturb that in Kent County? I frankly can see absolutely no benefit of this project being approved. If it has to be, find a piece of ground that's off of the main route that tourists see all the time. The fact that it wants to be placed where it is, that whole area, a whole lot of it is considered low income / moderate. And don't forget our HUD project on the other side of the woods. The fact that they're so pushing to put it there, it's almost like it's discriminatory that we can get it in a low-income area and there won't be any flack about it. There's not a person in this room who wants a solar farm, either their front yard view or their side yard or backyard. No one does. And I'm not against green energy by any means. But to change and alter a beautiful area, to me, it's close to criminal. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I think we pretty much covered all that. We believe we already covered most of that already. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. You'll raise your right hand. Do you declare testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. State your name and address, please.
Name is Franklin Henson, Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church.
My name is Violet Rose, and I'm Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church.
Okay.
Well, my thing is this. Everything everybody has said is true. I cannot understand why, number one, why did they pick that particular place to put a solar field? Why not put it somewhere where there's no houses or anything? And is this also the same company that put the solar fields over there in Queen Anne's County? Now, there's a big solar field over there in Queen Anne's County. There's no houses or anything around it. All it is fields. We have people who come down during the month of May and September, bike riders, stop at our church, and that's all they talk about is the beautiful view as they ride through. We're ready to destroy that. And I cannot understand why they want to put it there. They talked about the solar field over there in the other field. We didn't even know the solar field was over there for a long time because it was so growed up over there, you didn't even know it was there. You know, and I think it was a settlement pond over there at one time also. So, you know, this solar field in that they have in Stowe Pond, where is that at, and how many families are living around that?
It hasn't been built yet.
It hasn't, oh, good grief. It hasn't been built? Oh, let me, okay. Okay. And you talk about 5 years for the trees to grow. 5 years, I'll be 75 or 76. When I come out of church, I don't want to see that stuff over there. I don't want to see it. I love looking at the corn when it grows.
Yes.
Smell the manure when they spray the manure on the field. You know, I love that kind of stuff.
Right.
Seeing the eagles, seeing the deer. We don't want to see that come out of church and that. And then they was talking about, the gentleman was talking about interfering with reception. Well, where I live at, we can't get no reception, cell phone reception. We got to walk out in the road, up and down the road trying to get a reception. So if that's going to probably affect us also, you know. I just don't understand why it was even brought up. And I could see where they had already put a road in. And nobody knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about it. And my pastor called me and told me about it. And that's how I found out. And one day I happened to see this gentleman out there, and I stopped and talked to him. I knew nothing about all of this stuff until my pastor told us. We got to do a little bit better than that, you know, so we know what's going on, you know. People in the church don't want to come out on Sunday morning and see all of that glimmering, shining, and that's going to be for 5 years. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see it, period. You know, you're telling us one thing, but it's going to be another. So, you know, I say no. I say no.
I say no because I feel for the people who come to the cemetery to see their loved ones. I mean, they're going to the grave. You don't want to look across there and see anything. You don't want to hear anything. And my main thing is, you know, like the gentleman said, when things grow up, you can't see coming out of that road, and you don't see it till you're out in the middle of the road, almost. And so I think that's a hazard. And also, one last thing I have to say about it is, how would you like somebody to put that in your backyard? In your side yard?
That's it.
In your front yard? In your field? We live here. This is our community. This is what we have. And it's like, everybody can come in and take it away, and I don't think it's fair, but they do it anyway. And I don't think it's fair. And I think that the people in the community should have a say about what's in their yard, backyard, side yard, across the road. Because if you do that, how do we know later on you won't try to do it somewhere else? Right across, just move it on over. So, as they say, you say one thing and do something else. And that's just how I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
One question.
yes.
So the church is an active church?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
How many members would you say you have?
Okay, during a week, we may have anywhere from 25, maybe. Sometime less, sometime,
More, depending on
it
what it is.
depends. Sometime
Right.
less, sometime more. It depends.
Yes.
Yeah, but what we do, Mill Toter also, we worship together.
Oh, okay.
So that's how that goes.
Yes.
Then on the fifth Sunday, the first Sunday, we switch, we have communions. It's 4 churches on the charge, we switch.
We come together.
So,
Come together.
right,
Churches.
so,
So it is an active church?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
How
Oh,
long has the
yes.
church been there?
Forever.
18,
Isn't the church on some list, the Kent County
Yes.
Historic?
Historical list,
Yes.
yes, it is.
yes.
That's what I thought, too.
18, it's 18, I want to say
It's been there.
29, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
It's in the 1800s, that's all I can
It's
say.
in the 1800s, but I do know that,
Yes.
so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You wish to respond to that?
First of all, I appreciate them coming out and so we can actually listen to their concerns. Just like we did last time at the Plan Commission, we actually listened to the concerns of the people and actually able to add to our plan. We increased a little bit of the landscape in the landscaping buffer. We added the berm like they asked us to. All I'd ask is if you do approve this tonight, which I hope you do, I hope these people will reach out to us and tell us what they would like to do to maybe improve the project. I hear a lot that we don't want the project, we understand that, but if this project happens to go forward, what can we do to make it better for you? I will certainly have open ears to that. I'm sure the rest of my colleagues would as well.
Well, to that point, I think one thing that they've made clear is that the initial project is going to, too much, for them, the view is going to be affected, and too much of the view is going to be affected for too long. And it seems they may, to help them better understand, have planting higher trees
Yeah.
initially might be a way to appease some of the concerns that are out there.
Right, and we actually discussed that as well, that we could certainly look at that as well. As of right now, what we have followed is the county code. The county code says you plant these amount of trees. We actually added more than what that county code asks for. And also the county code says it has to be opaque in 5 years, and that's what we abided by, because that is the guidelines that we have to follow. So that's the guidelines we did follow.
Well, I understand it's the guidelines, but I was just
Yes.
saying, you all do sound sincere in
Yes.
listening to what people were saying, and that might be one thing that would help.
Right. And again, yeah, we, same what we did for Still Pond Neck. We actually put a row of arborvitae's in there to help increase the height of that, to help obscure the view as well. I think that's certainly something we can discuss, and, we got Mr. Carper in here that keeps me on the straight and narrow. So you have him on your side as well to make sure we do what's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, does anybody know if this land is in for agricultural preserve?
Pardon?
Is this land in agricultural preserve?
No.
Does anybody know?
It's not.
No.
No.
If they want to help us, they can take it somewhere else. That's the way it
Well.
helps us.
I'm just going to make a comment. If anybody really wishes to
Elizabeth's
speak,
raised her hand in the back.
the comment should be directed to the chair, and you should be recognized and come forth. You know, we can't really have people just shouting out or making comments from the audience, because we have to have a record of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to speak.
Well, you want to come forward and testify? Raise your right hand. You declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address.
Rosemary Crawford, 909 6 Mount Pleasant Road. I'm at the top of the hill between the graveyard and the Blankenship's property. So I don't face it directly because I'm way up the lane. I'm at the top, to the top right. So my other concerns besides the eyesore for a short time, whatever, and the possibility of accidents there on that corner is the air quality and how it affects us, you know, as far as just how it's going to affect us, our health. And is the air quality going to be warm? Is it warmer going to be there in the summer because of these panels? Does it change anything that'll affect? I mean, I know I'm further back up, but I have a 6-year-old that I've had since he was born, and I have to take him to the bus stop across the street from the mailboxes between the graveyard and the Blankenship. So I will be there in the mornings to put him on the bus. So it doesn't affect me, like, you know, initially. I'm in the back, but I'm just concerned more about the health and how far does that exposure, what does it cover? What range of exposure, if it's good, bad, or whatever? And does it change the weather in the summer? Is it warmer? What? I just had a few questions about that. And I'm not happy about it either, because I've been here, almost 30 years in Chestertown, and I've been at this property for about 19 years now. And there are 3 other homeowners up that private lane, and I did not receive a letter, and I'm part of that neighborhood, just to specify that. Only one of my neighbors received a letter, I was told. So I'm just here for the health,
Okay.
more so.
All right. Well, thank you for your testimony.
No, we're good.
So how about will it affect the weather?
I will touch base on that. I have not seen any reports on increase in temperature from a solar farm. These things are meant to absorb the sunlight. They're not meant to reflect it or heat up or cause any increase in temperature. I've not seen any studies on that whatsoever, and actually, this is probably the first time I've heard that. So,
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Do you declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. State your name and address, please.
Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. My name is Elizabeth Watson. I live at 226 North Kent Street, Apartment B in Chestertown. And I'm a 20-year resident of the county, and I'm a member of the board of the Kent Conservation and Preservation Alliance, which opposed this project in its original proposition before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission at that session where we opposed they proposed no berm, and they are now putting in the required berm. The requirement is that the coverage be for 2 years. It's not 5 years. That's in our law.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So the trees should cover this project in 2 years.
Okay.
That's what the Technical Advisory Committee was reviewing, and that is what should be reviewed. I don't really have anything more specific than that, but I wanted to sort of put this in a little bit more perspective. First of all, as to the Mount Pleasant Church, it is very old, and churches like that have disappeared from the landscape in Kent County for many years. That this charge has survived is a really wonderful thing, and it's very valuable to our community, and I commend those who wrote the original law who didn't require that these buildings be necessarily designated in some fancy kind of way, but they're simply protected historic and cultural sites in the county, and that's what our law requires. And so that has been looked at. It is a pity that we are seeing a third industrial site being sited around that church and in that neighborhood and in that gateway, which I think the neighbors have very well expressed. Because, you know, there are many places to go in the county. There are some that are less visible than this. What has tied our hands in this is that the law does allow you, the Board of Appeals, to allow a conditional use, a special exception, that if they can prove that they can do certain things, then you can say yes. And it's hard for you to say no. And it's also hard for the Planning Commission to say no. What would really help would be to not allow these things in certain corridors or in agricultural zones or something. And that's going to take a much larger push on the part of the community to change the conditions we're dealing with here. The only thing I can offer to this community right now is to say, go back to the Planning Commission and make sure that everybody's holding their feet to the fire. You guys did, I really want to commend you for talking about the watering. We are really concerned in this climate, the heat. We're all seeing the heat for the last 12 months. We've had record heat. We're going to see that happening. And they've made a good point about if it's cheaper to save the trees than to keep replanting. But we are not seeing good enforcement in some of these sites around the county. And the bond is a kind of nuclear option. It's really hard to use the bond to deal with the sort of, you know, small nibbling away problems of the landscape. So we are in a special place. This is the last great colonial landscape, some people say, and it has a story to tell, and how this community has survived and thrived on the basis of what we already have is a really important value to be reinforced. I can't advise you on how to do it. I'd like to see this not approved. But it's hard for me. I'm a professional planner, so it's hard for me to tell you don't approve it because you have to follow the law. But I think putting as many conditions in as possible to make this bearable for the people who have to suffer this is a good thing. And I do think that we really ought to look as a community at how we do this, because this is not the first, and it is most certainly not the last. And it is not up to us necessarily to abide necessarily by the state's requirements that we, have renewable energy. KCPA supports renewable energy, just not in certain places, including the 300 acres on the, the east of Chestertown. It's a really bad situation. So is this. So, I just want to encourage you to think about this. The cultural landscape of this county is superb. There are reasons that people move here, and people have expressed that here, and I am with them 100%. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just briefly to address the 2-year versus the 5-year distinction. So the code states that generally it says that provide an opaque visual barrier that obscures the array from sight once the vegetation reaches maturity or within 5 years, whichever comes first. So that's the general standard is 5 years. If you, in a different subsection, with the berm, the 3-foot berm, it says the berm requirement may be waived in part or total subject to the following conditions. And one of those conditions is that the landscaping screen elevations of the site adequately within 2 years. So if you waive the berm, then you go to the 2-year screening, but the general screening with the berm is 5 years per the code.
And if you could just give me a quick answer, what are the height of the trees going to be?
8 foot. 8 foot. Well, they go by caliper, but 2.5-inch caliper is the round of the trunk, and they're typically 8 feet tall.
Okay.
At planting.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience who wishes to testify? Okay, staff, we'd like to call staff. declare the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and position, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Carpenter. I'm Associate Planner.
And staff's recommendation.
Staff has recommended that the special exception be granted, conditioned upon the approval of the final site plan. The Planning Commission had provided these two particular conditions that they put forth, and I think these are some of the components that really weigh in on your decision in terms of whether or not what they're proposing meets these conditions regarding the glare, and also the view from and to sites of significant interest, in particular Mount Pleasant Church and that particular intersection. I do want to make a bit of a clarification in regards to a question that was asked earlier about the setback and whether or not the landscape buffer falls outside of that setback. The arrays themselves, the panels do meet that setback requirement as required by our land use ordinance. Parts of the fencing and parts of the landscape buffer are outside of that particular setback. I just wanted to clarify that. So you look carefully at the site plan, it would illustrate that. So I think there was a bit of confusion in regards to that particular question.
Okay, good, good. Any questions?
I don't know, I have some concerns about that there are residents in the area. How did you all address that? I mean, there are more residents in this area for this project than there were in the Betterton project. Was that discussed in the?
Well, in regards to the number of residences, it was not a topic of discussion, primarily in terms of the presentation of the Planning Commission, and what's addressed here is these requirements about the viewpoint, the screening, and the safety, and not being affected by the glare. So those are the components I think that strike the most prevalence within this decision that you're faced with. So in regards to the residences, the number of residences, that was not a topic that was brought up.
Well, obviously, there are cultural and historic landmarks in this area, which I think would have an impact on the development.
Yes, there are.
So was that addressed with what you did, or?
Yeah, I did the review of this application. Mount Pleasant Church is listed in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties. So it is significant, it is a cultural landmark. And that was presented to the Planning Commission as presented to you as well. In regards to our land use ordinance, the comprehensive plan does specify that these kinds of activities not negatively impact the view from or toward these particular sites. That was presented to the applicant, and they presented these revised landscaping plans, which include the berm and the shift in the arrangement of the particular plantings. The berm itself, which would be 3 feet in height, as I understand it, the evergreen trees, and there's 3 different varieties, will be placed at the top of that, interspersed downhill from that toward the road. Then you have shade trees, deciduous trees, and bushes and such. So there'll be some variance in the texture, and I think that's sort of revealed within the renderings that are presented. So I think that was an effort to sort of blend in with the natural habitat.
So it seems the solution is going to be the plantings and the trees. That seems to be the main solution that you've come up with to address the concerns.
Yes.
Yeah, the total farm is 335 acres,
Yes, I believe that's the case.
and it's split by Fairleigh Road.
Yes, sir.
So is that one property or 2?
According to tax information, it's one property bisected by the road. The portion to the north is 131 acres, I believe.
335 and
Yep.
204 on the south. So if we can get one property, splitting it with a state road, and saying you put a county road in there, and the county solar fields don't exist as far as we're supposed to believe. We're not supposed to count them as adjoining solar field to this solar field.
You mean as to whether or not it's an aggregate to this?
Yeah.
I think as was discussed earlier,
Yes.
they're not contiguous properties, so it would not be considered an aggregate. This is a different development project. This is utility scale meant for the generation and exportation of the energy derived for the distribution, as opposed to the one across the street, which is for use by county.
But as I said before, the normal citizen driving down the road is going to see solar fields on both sides.
I guess that would depend upon the screening that's available.
Okay, thank you.
And I did want to make it clear that the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the village master plan for the county.
In regards to the consistency with the comprehensive plan, the county is in support of renewable energies, and so it does fit that requirement. I think the difficult question is about sort of the gateways and viewpoints, so that would need to be addressed through the landscaping.
Okay. Mr. Yeager, you have any questions for
No, I
staff?
do not.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have questions for the staff? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you very much.
You want to have a closing statement? I don't believe we have anyone on the internet that is viewing this from afar, so we will not take testimony from the internet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, thank you for your time tonight. I know this is a difficult topic. When you come in and you have a new proposal to do any kind of project, there's always change involved. That is certainly challenging. Here in this case, the county has determined that in the AZD district, these kinds of projects are permitted by special exception, and then they list the different criteria, which we produced evidence tonight to satisfy those criteria. Certainly, like Mr. Hastings said, this is an approval of the use tonight. The site plan piece continues. We will go back to the Planning Commission. If there are other comments that people have, ideas, ways to improve through additional screening, that sort of thing, certainly we want to hear all those ideas. So can definitely appreciate that this is challenging. But again, our understanding is that the county policy supports these projects. There's a presumption in favor of a special exception use. It is a legislatively approved use subject to meeting various criteria. And we believe that we've satisfied those criteria. But again, we are, looking to incorporate comments as we go forward. So that's all we have. Thank you.
Any of the protestants wish to make a closing statement? Okay, thank you. Thank you all. If you'll give us a bit, we'll discuss this and see where we wind up. Well, I think the legitimacy of this is pretty well understood, that the landowner has the right to develop or to sell the land or lease the land for solar panels not to exceed 5 acres. That's been mandated by the state of Maryland. And it makes it very difficult for us to deny something that's been mandated by the state. There's certainly concerns by the community, and there certainly seems as though there may be some relief that's possible that would ease some of their concerns. The county comprehensive plan allows for solar energy, sustainable energy, and it encourages it. There are many more steps that the people are going to have to take in order for this to actually come to fruition, and many more areas where compromise can be reached with regard to this as well. And over time, technology is going to be an advantage to the solar panels as well. It's my understanding solar panel development is really, really popular thing right now. So many people are into solar energy and trying to make more sustainable energy, less toxic power. So hopefully that will play a role as well. Ms. Horsey, you have any comments?
Just thinking, see what John says.
Yeah,
Go get him, John.
well, let's see, their proposed location, they got 335 acres, and they've stuffed it right down amongst everyone else, amongst the church. If I can't talk about the solar field across the road, because it's across the road, it's not next door, fine. I don't agree with that, but we'll go on. One thing that really concerned me was when they said that the landowner who has a dairy business is not planning on using any of the electricity, not planning on getting a discount for his electric. That means he's just going off of what they're paying him lease-wise for his 5 acres. So it's 5 acres of corn is a whole lot less money than 5 acres of solar fields. So does that make it incidental? I don't know. He's not doing it for his own betterment to lower his power bill. He's doing it to make money off solar field. Is that incidental?
Good question.
Good question.
Mr. Yeager, you have a comment on that?
I don't have an answer for that. I was gonna see if I could look something up, but, because these are like a community solar type of projects. And as I recall, we don't know if the landowner is going to use it or not. As I recall, what the testimony was, that the landowner certainly has the opportunity to be a customer, but the landowner hasn't done a deal where he has reserved
Right, that's why.
something for himself on there. Mr. Mackey, can you direct me to the provision in the land use ordinance providing for this use, the section, just so I can find it quickly?
Under special exceptions. Do you have a page number handy, one of you all?
It just make it a little easier for me to sift through this.
It's in there. All of it is in the
The staff report's in the staff report.
Thank you.
We're right
One
there.
page away.
Yeah, here we are. No, that's, I think I have an older version of the code here,
Thank you.
which, yeah, is not in,
I've got Article 3, Section 2, subsection 160.
is it in the staff report?
It's in the staff report.
Which I had, I was looking at earlier. Yeah, here, let me
It's
just,
there, and you put a page for
here it is. Here's what I'm looking at.
You need the rest of it, here it is.
Oh.
Thank you.
think it's 57.25, is that correct?
Yes.
And your question is, does the fact that the farmer, the owner of the property, has not reserved use on this for himself, does that make this not applicable? And I think the answer is no, that he's not required to reserve capacity on the system. I think the attorney for the applicant was going to address this. If you want to go ahead.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
So this topic, the same question came up with the Still Pond Neck project, which is the same company. They were SGC then, but Pivot owns them. And this question came up, and that farm, I believe, was about 85 acres. And we were still in the 5-acre solar panel and the 60-foot buffer. And the question came up, and as I recall, we had some debate about it, and Mr. Drummond was here as counsel.
Right,
and you all went into executive session, and Mr. Drummond, gave you advice, you came back out, and then Mr. Drummond made the joking comment, were you overhearing our conversation? Because the issue was, it doesn't have to be accessory to the principal. It's incidental, which is a different term, and accessory is a term of art. And in that case, the power in that project was not reserved to the property owner, and there were no improvements on that farm, or at least no house or no operation. And I don't have the decision with me, but I believe the decision references this incidental to issue, and the board ultimately determined that that incidental to language was satisfied in the context of that project, where it was approximately the 5 acres of panels and the 85 acres of the property. And I think we came down where it was, it was only taking up a small space on what would continue otherwise to be an actively farmed property. And the farmer was making money from the lease as they would here. But I think the idea is that the farmer can, benefit from having this steady stream of income, and, that allows a farmer to diversify the operations on their farm.
Yeah, I mean, my interpretation of this is that you still have to have a farm. So you can't say, the only thing I'm having on my property is a solar project. There has to be some farming somewhere, and this is incidental to the farming. So from my understanding of the testimony is the landowner owns a very, very large tract of land. So 5 acres of this is a small portion of the land that the farmer is still going to farm on. So that would make it incidental. I think if you're talking about a 5-acre parcel and you're not farming any of it, that would be problematic. Or if you're going to farm 1 acre and have a solar array of 3 acres, I think that's problematic. But the fact that you have a large tract of land and only 5 acres of it is going to be for the solar collection system, that would be incidental, because the majority of the land is going to be farmed. And an accessory use is often something that goes with the primary use. For example, if you're going to have a garage and maybe you rent out an apartment over the garage, that's kind of accessory to having a residence on your main parcel. So I would agree there's a difference between an accessory use and an incidental use. So after this discussion, the answer to your question is in my opinion, know that the fact that the farmer has not reserved capacity on the system, that does not cause it to, I know I have a lot of negatives here, but that does not cause it to not meet the requirement of item E under 57.25.
Thank you.
I just want to say, it appears that, well, I don't really think the location is appropriate, given the church and the residences that live around it, but I understand that's probably not in their purview to decide, because the landowner has a right to do what he wants to with his property. So my next question is, what recourse would these residents have if they feel like the they're not complying with the agreement in some way, if they hear noise or, who's that question for? Tom or?
Well, if you have conditions here, and those conditions are not being followed, typically enforcement is complaint-driven, in that Mr. Mackey's staff does not have the opportunity basically to drive around the county and inspect every piece of land. So what typically happens in situations like this is if this project is not following the conditions, a landowner or somebody near it would most likely alert Mr. Mackey's office. They would do an inspection. And for example, let's say the plantings that were promised weren't planted, or 4-foot trees were planted rather than 8-foot trees, or the trees weren't spaced properly, so there's not screening, or the trees weren't watered and they died and they weren't replaced. All those things would typically be discovered as a result of citizen complaints. Then Mr. Mackey would have an inspector. They would notify the property owner. The property owner would be directed to cure, because the idea is to get the property in compliance, not necessarily issue a citation. But if a property is not in compliance, and then after being notified, the property owner does not get the property in compliance, then there's further enforcement action that can be taken, which could be citations, fines, and it could go on from there. It could be injunctive relief if that is deemed to be appropriate. So there's a whole host of things that can happen. But again, Mr. Mackey's office is generally not going to know that a condition's being violated unless somebody makes a complaint and alerts them to that.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Want to get out to the public too. Any further comments?
I don't think so.
Mr. Massey, any further comments? Are you ready to make a motion?
Not me. You can make the motion.
They wouldn't make my motion.
What do you say?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, you do it.
Okay.
I can't.
I think that we really have to approve the application based on the law. We have very little control over state law, county law. We really do unfortunately have to make the decision. I think we all have concerns about the church, residents, the location of it. I think we all do, but the landowner has the right to lease the property, to do this. The county allows it. I think that the one thing we can do is consider any considerations with regard to the project.
And you would need to find that the criteria set forth at 57.25 is met as part of your fact finding.
Okay, so that's all of the criteria that are there.
Yes.
Yeah. And according to the applicant, the height of the trees is within the requirements by the county. But my concern is it's not going to meet the needs of the community.
Well, because of this site, you can take into consideration the location of the site, because what you have to, one of the things in a special exception you look at is the harm to this site greater than the harm that's inherent by this use, because, or the impact of this, because there's always going to be an impact of this use no matter where it is. So you could put, to mitigate that, you could put requirements on here. So if you feel that just given the configuration of the property and the location of the property, that you need to have some additional conditions on here or something in here to safeguard or to show that there's going to be adequate screening, you can put those conditions on.
Well, I feel like we ought to consider that, either raising the height of the berm or growing, planting larger trees.
If you find that given the configuration of the property and the location to other residences, that's necessary in order to have the proper screening as what's envisioned by your ordinance, then we would put these conditions on.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the visual line is anything, the height of everything is 15 feet. And with a 3-foot berm and an 8-foot tree.
You're short.
You're short.
You have another 3 to 4 feet.
Yeah, and they're saying that it has to be, we have to give it 5 years.
And you raise the berm.
So.
Because I think anyone who's planted trees knows the larger the tree is that you plant, the more difficult it is, the more water it's going to need, and the greater the likelihood that that tree's not going to survive. A smaller tree that's transplanted has a greater chance of survival than a larger tree. So if you need that extra height, from a practical standpoint, increasing the berm is probably going to have a better shot at getting you there than increasing the height of the tree. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a landscaper. I'm just saying that based on observation and one who has transplanted trees.
I read somewhere where an irrigation plan and vegetative maintenance agreement had to be submitted. Should that be a condition?
Yes.
Right, because it's easy to say, well, we'll water them, but you should have some plan in place. Trees of that size are going to need to be watered.
Right.
They're not going to survive otherwise.
So if we raise the berm from 3 feet to 5 feet, it would give us 2 more feet. It would take less time for the trees to mature above the 15-foot level and wouldn't increase the risk of trees dying or failure of the trees and all that.
Because it's the same size tree.
Yeah.
They're just going to be at a higher elevation when they're planted.
So my thought would be to have a irrigation and plant management program initiated and to raise the berm to 5 feet. Would that be acceptable to you? You want to make a motion? Or do you want me to do it?
You want me to make the motion? I move to grant a special exception for utility-scale solar energy system in the agricultural zoning district on the 131-acre portion north of Fairley Road of the 335.16-acre farm located at 9425 Fairley Road, Chestertown, in the 6th election district, owned by Thomas and Alice Mason, with the following conditions. Now, I'm not sure we include conditions because I think they may have already been met. Conditions I had was the applicant provides evidence that glare and reflection on the adjacent property shall not interfere with traffic or create a safety hazard. think they've already submitted that, but should that be part
Well,
of my
that
motion?
should be part of it, because that's in theory, that's a study. But
Okay.
when they build the project, they
Okay.
have to do that. So
Applicant demonstrates that the proposed energy system will not interfere with the view of or from sites of significant public interest, in particular the Mount Pleasant Church, and that the proposed development integrates into the existing landscape, and also an irrigation plan or vegetative maintenance agreement must be submitted. Anything else?
And raise the berm to 5 feet,
Oh, we want to raise the berm 5 feet,
to 5 feet.
to 5 feet. So that's 4 conditions, right?
I believe so.
that's for you to determine. I think you want to make sure you've covered what the planning commission has recommended.
Well, I have a lot of notes here.
Yeah, and I think what you're looking at, I think what's set forth on Mr. Carper's memorandum, below where it says notice, with the glare and reflection, the not interfering with the sites, and then the berm would be 5 feet instead of 3 feet.
I think so.
Second.
You give me a second.
I gave you a second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So your motion is passed with conditions, and hopefully you're okay with all that. And you'll be notified within 30 days.
All right. Mr. Chair, before we leave this item, I believe, based on council's recommendation, that you might want to make a separate motion whereby you find the findings, and I think you could do that as a plenary motion, that you would refer to the staff's list of findings.
Right.
Thank you.
You can incorporate the findings of the staff into your findings in that it met the criteria under the ordinance. So you can adopt the staff's findings as
Okay.
yours.
Okay. So we don't need, we just,
You want to make, let's do a motion for that, so that's on the record, because you do have to make findings of fact when you approve. So you want to make findings that you are adopting the findings that are set forth in the staff report. Is that satisfactory to you, Mr. Mackey?
Yeah, make a motion that we adopt the findings that are set forth in the staff report. Good enough.
Joan, you second it?
Second the motion.
Okay, you in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's passed. Thank you all very much for coming, and sorry for the delay and the length of time and all that, but we want to make sure everybody had their say.
You seconded the first motion, too, correct?
I don't like it, but I understand. I got a question.
We're going to do the minutes next.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are we going with the minutes?
We'll,
Are these the minutes? Have you seen them?
didn't you get a copy?
I don't think so.
You should have got a copy. They just handed this one to me.
I think they just handed it. It's all right.
That's a draft proposed decision. The minutes were.
Can we get, each of us get a copy of
Oh, this is the decision? Sure. Yep.
the
That's-
Watson decision?
That's the decision there.
No, I
Yeah.
got it.
You do?
Yep.
I thought he gave everybody.
You wanted it right now, real
Right.
time?
Yeah.
You want to review it? Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we want
Yep.
to take the time to review it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
I knew it, I gotta get, well, this is gonna be replaced by the new one, but
Yeah.
that explains why I was having a hard time finding it in here, because it wasn't in here.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
What do you say?
when I got stuff out there, but usually I just go online.
Yeah, I should,
Comprehensive plan,
I just
yeah,
like
right. Have
books,
they
and
approved
they've
it now?
probably
Yeah.
given me updates, and it
Have
just
they
hasn't
approved
made it
it?
in here.
Approved all of that?
Don't think so.
That's why.
The mic is hot.
I haven't said anything that you can't hold me to.
Are you okay with it? I'm like, what? Just makes it difficult. We're still on.
Yeah, we are being recorded, and it is archived and available permanently, so. There are two items I wanted to discuss with you while Carla's making photocopies. One is you are having a meeting in July, just so you're aware of it, July 15th, so there is a item on the agenda. And I think, and this was something that Carla raised, but I'll raise it while she's not here, is we wanted to suggest that perhaps on that July meeting, along with your application you're reviewing, to add an item, and we would do that, to review your bylaws. Because I know there's been some discussion about what's a decision, when does the decision, what counts for the 30 days and how that works. So you all might want to think about that, and then we can amend your bylaws so that it's clear to everyone, what we're doing, what counts as a decision, when the 30 days starts, under Maryland Rule 7. So those are the two items. And I wanted to talk a little bit about solar with you all, not the item that was before you, but just in general to say, the General Assembly is entertaining laws that would preempt absolutely everything, including these. Right now, anything under 2 megawatts, counties still have authority to approve or disapprove. So my understanding is General Assembly was very active. There were a number of bills to completely preempt everything from under county control, and those did not pass this session, but they will be back. And, our representative, the Maryland Association of Counties, is working very, very hard to show the Assembly that the counties are working to integrate solar into our communities so that the General Assembly doesn't feel the need to preempt absolutely everything. So I appreciate your time and consideration, following our laws. I mean, we did it was, I think, 10 years ago, a pretty in-depth scientific study, and the results of what is permitted where in the county is part of that, the Renewable Energy Task Force recommendations. Commissioners adopted those. And even with all the things that we have adopted, we lost the Morgneck Solar appeal case partially because the Public Utility Law judge didn't feel that our code permitted solar in enough places.
Right.
So we're already sort of in an uphill battle. So I appreciate you all taking the time, careful consideration, abiding by the law, because I think we need to prove our bona fides as a county so that everything isn't preempted,
Yeah,
right?
and-
The reason Morgneck Solar didn't come before you is because they're preempted. So they didn't have to get reviewed for location, which is generally what you all do. So I think it's important to follow the law. I'm just thanking you for doing so.
Right, and Mr. Mackey did a good job pointing out all the places in the county where you could have a larger utility-scale solar project, and we made an argument that I thought we articulated well. Mr. Drummond and I worked together on that, saying we did provide for it. We had a task force. It was carefully considered. It wasn't like we said you can't have it anywhere. We took a look at the unique character of the county, and we reserved sufficient areas in the county where you could have these. And the Public Service Commission judge, she opined otherwise. She says, no, you didn't, that you didn't reserve enough areas. You should have more areas, and the proposed location, even though it wasn't an area in your zoning that provided for it, it was an area where you should have provided for it, and I'm going to allow it here. And, we did everything we could. Mr. Drummond and I both advocated for the county. We took a little bit different approaches to it as to how we made the points, but it really didn't matter that the Public Service Commission judge was pretty adamant in her views and her opinion.
And we appealed that. And we lost on appeal to the full Public Service Commission.
Yes.
Yeah, we went through 2 rounds of this.
Yes, and you see the direction that the state of Maryland is going at this, and that's where the winds are blowing. And it's really of no surprise that there are legislators that are trying to take projects of the scale of the one that was before you tonight and put them basically in the same category as the projects like the Morgneck Road Solar, that they take it all away from local zoning except due consideration, whatever that means. And due consideration doesn't mean they have to follow it, you just have to acknowledge it. And it, for what it's worth, to me, that could become just lip service to what our laws are. And we don't necessarily agree with that. You know, it's best for these decisions to be made at the local area because you and other local officials know what's best for this county more than somebody statewide does. But the law seems to be hitting in the opposite direction.
Brought 4 up to the table.
Joan didn't get one.
There is already one on the table to begin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
They're sticky. Okay. I know Carlo reviewed this and read it word for word before the meeting.
I just found some typographical missing commas.
Yeah, if you can
Extra
point
comments.
that out. And I wanted to see if this is the right format that the board would like for decisions, because if the board likes this format, likes them written in this way, this is how I'll do the next round.
Well, this is the decision. It's not the minutes.
No, this is the decision.
The minutes would have been in your packet, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Which was confusing because we'd never seen those before, written like that.
Yes, the minutes were in a new format.
And I understand it was done by artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And the Watson decision, the people that heard the case was wrong.
Okay.
Mrs. Horsey had recused herself, and Mr. Hill was there.
Okay, thank you.
As vice chair, do I get more money?
And that was new, too.
Okay, I will add that to the minutes and for next time's review and approval. Thank you.
Okay.
And Carla, with what I prepared, if you could just email
I
me
will.
or fax me your punctuation corrections. I have no pride in authorship there. I'm sure I missed a few things.
And in a discussion I had with Mr. Yeager, the plan is to proceed the way Mr. Drummond had presented our decisions. And hopefully this is that way, although this particular decision ranged from January to June. So it's the history of it is a little bit longer and a little bit more involved.
And there was a meeting, this predated me.
Yeah.
So I don't have personal knowledge of some of the things that happened early on. So I had a productive conversation with the chairman as to some of the things that happened before I came on board. And I also had a discussion with Mr. Mackey at one point in regard to that. So if there's anything prior to my involvement that I have that's not accurate, let me know and I'll correct that.
So if you give us a few minutes to review this, and then we can.
And you can approve it subject to correcting any grammatical errors.
This is actually, what they have is the one that has the grammatical errors corrected.
Which are literally commas.
Literally, they were commas.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's,
So this
can
could
can
be-
you just email that to me
I
then?
will,
So
yes.
Yep. So this
No, I
copy
know.
could be
Let's just
signed
get
this
that in
evening.
here.
Okay, so all I missed were some
You didn't
commas.
tell him.
Yes.
Oh, well, I feel better
job,
about that.
Yeah. I didn't have any other comments on it.
Tom?
So, Mr. Chair, this could be you could sign this tonight if you wish. It's ready to be signed if you agree to it.
Actually, I have this, if I have what's double-sided, because what I had done was single-sided, so if you have it double-sided, I have your, okay,
If you'll
yours.
give us a few minutes to review it.
I have a mistake, Tom. I didn't recuse myself in this case. I recused myself in the Maneri's Dream case.
Oh, okay. MDA.
Okay, so,
Oh. So the AI was right.
There you
Is
go.
that correct?
I didn't
I
check.
don't know where the AII is.
Right there.
Oh, this. Oh, but, no, they talked about,
just let me know and we'll
right up here.
What you could do is
Right,
if
but I
you,
want to see what case it was.
if you approve this based on the changes to have that you did not recuse yourself, and that you were the one that made the motion rather than the alternate, you could approve this tonight. Between Carla and I, we can correct it, and then you can distribute, you can sign it without the need to wait till the next meeting.
Right.
So Mrs. Horsey heard the Watson case and the other,
It was the Maneri's Dream that she.
no, the other
recused.
one, it was Veneri's Dream that she recused herself.
Okay, so my suggestion would be then, you can approve this, subject to the change being made
Okay.
to remove the language about Mrs. Horsey recusing herself. And then I take it the AI was right, it was Mrs. Horsey that made the motion, not Mr. Hill.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll review that, and let's defer these minutes till next time to make sure they're correct. Happy to do that. Yeah.
So we're going to delay this another month?
Well, the minutes, the decision you're not going to delay.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
You can approve the decision subject to the correction that we just made. We'll make the correction, and then it can be distributed for you to sign.
We can stop in and sign it, yeah.
Generally, the board members come into the
Yeah,
office.
'cause that's usually how we come in and sign it when it's ready. That way, there's only one copy.
And I don't think it'll take very long to make that correction.
Anything else?
Oh, misspelled word. Does that make any difference?
No, mark it up, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And if any of you would prefer to see the Word document, the digital form, we can email that to you if that's an easier way for you to review and mark up.
You know, sometimes spell check, it doesn't catch things because
see it.
it may be a word
That's a word.
where it's the wrong word, but
Yeah.
it's a word, so
Here,
it doesn't
not
put the
minor.
line there.
Yeah. Yep.
Was it linear that you caught as a misspelling? Was it linear, liner versus linear? Or was there another one?
Watson. Second page,
Okay, and I found one on the first page.
second paragraph.
Yes, got it,
Got it.
Watson spelled wrong?
yes.
Oh, Waston.
Boston.
Yeah, I see it.
He went up to New England.
Yeah, I see that.
But 2 lines later, it's spelled right, so yeah.
Okay.
No, you gotta take me out of there about being recused
Yeah,
again.
we're
Yep.
going to do that.
Okay.
I have you in there, I think, is recusing yourself twice, so we'll get it out of there both places.
Locking the doors is way easier now. One button lock.
Page 3, next to the last line. It's Cooper's Lane, not Cooper's Lane.
Yeah, I see there's a typo, Lane.
Land.
I read this fast.
Page 3,
Yeah,
the last
Yeah.
line.
Yep,
Got that? Not next to the last line.
Next to the
yeah.
last line, yes.
Lane,
Cooper
there's a
Lane,
D
yeah.
in lane that
Yep.
doesn't belong.
We mentioned in this paper, we mentioned Mr. Douglas and his consulting services.
Yes, I had that in my notes.
Yeah, and for me, his testimony was pretty significant. With it,
Did he testify at the first hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I did not have notes for that, but I did have in my notes where you had, when you made your motion, you said, accept his recommendation, and I also referenced his proposal, what he submitted.
Yes, but
I can add, what I can add when I say that Mr. Lindstrom presented the applicant's case, I can say that Mr. Dalgus testified in support of it.
yeah, because I think that was, his testimony was pretty significant, based on, and also based on his experience. I think he said he's worked for the government for 50 years, and
Yeah, I'll put that, yeah, thank you, because again, I wasn't present for that. So I'm going to add that in the paragraph discussing the January meeting.
okay.
I found another typo on page 4. Should be 85 linear feet instead of lineal fees.
Oh, yeah,
On page 5,
yeah,
the first real paragraph, Carla, the second line, Mr. Hill didn't make the motion, I
Right, yep.
think I did.
correct.
Yep.
Correct, because I was under the impression that he sat for you.
Right.
So we're going to correct that. And Ms. Horsey, did you make the second motion? Because there was two motions. There was one to rescind, reverse the earlier decision, and then there was a motion to accept the recommendation of Mr. Dalgus and grant the application.
I think I did, you
I
didn't
think you
do
made
that.
both, I
Yeah.
think, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was on a roll.
yeah.
Okay, you got it all done?
Yeah.
All right, thank you all.
Okay, so that'll be done tomorrow, we can sign it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, just let us know when you get it,
We will send out an email when it's ready for signature.
okay, good. Any other business?
Need a motion? No, we adjourn.